Hey everyone, just wanted to talk today about a very interesting survey that came back from Fidelity. They do this annual survey, and given the last year we've had, this provides some interesting insights into how retirement savings have grown. And in fact, or maybe opposite to what you think was contrary belief, the number of millionaires based on 401k and IRA accounts has grown by a record. And this is coming from Fidelity, but Fidelity owns almost 20% of the market, so it's very indicative of the overall retirement scenario. And so the numbers here were pretty interesting. I'll say even myself, I fell into this bucket, so it's nice to be now a retirement millionaire. But are you one? And see how you stack up, and I'll show you what other people are doing to get here. As always, if you like what you see, please hit the like button and subscribe to keep getting more videos like this. So looking at the survey results, this came out from Fidelity, and it really looks at the average account balances. And basically what it's saying is that the average account hit its third record in as many fiscal quarters, which means that every quarter over the last 3 quarters, it has been hitting a record. And I'll show you some of the figures. I also include a link to the Fidelity report if you want to read all the details. But the average 401k balance now stands at 129,300, which is almost 25,000 than the same time last year. And this is huge. I mean, if you look at the contribution every year, it's 19,500 to 401k is the maximum you can make plus employee match, but it's gone up by that and then more. And that's really reflective of the 70% increase in the indexes we've seen over the last year. So if you've been in the market, kept on investing, your retirement account has grown up. But to have a 25,000 increase, which is, pretty significant, almost over 20%, it's a pretty nice increase for a lot of people. So this has actually pushed a lot of people into that millionaire bucket. And this is just the average, 129,300. I think people have a lot more. And this is 401ks, which means that an employer match is there. It's not only IRAs. I'll show about IRAs a bit later. But the interesting one here, which is the number of savers who are retirement millionaires, basically means over $1 million in their retirement account. Hit an all-time high of 753,000 accounts. So this may sound like a lot, but there's millions of accounts out there. But it just shows you the growth. So we technically almost are approaching 1 million millionaires, which is interesting to see as well. And the biggest thing I thought was this is twice as many as a year ago. So basically in a year, we've doubled the number of millionaires who are in their retirement millionaires. And this is not surprising given the market, like I mentioned earlier. But, this is, again, if you look at it, 3% of the overall, less than 3% of the overall $30 million that Fidelity manages. Now, Fidelity has a lot of accounts. And so, people have Vanguard, they have TD, TD Row and various different retirement accounts. But I'm pretty sure you can probably find the same trend in most big retirement accounts. And it's really a function of the booming markets, people getting a lot more stimulus checks and having money to save. They've been spending less. So this was interesting just to show you the statistics here. And you can see here, that this was the most recent quarter that reported there, 134,000 in IRA accounts. And IRA accounts are those people who are self-managed, self-directed accounts. So, either you converted from a 401k or just contributed yourself. They don't have the employer match, but they work pretty much like 401ks in terms of the tax benefits. But if you look in 2021, it was 134,000. Last year, it was 111,000. And then 10 years ago, in 2011, it was only 72,000. So essentially in 10 years, we've doubled our retirement account. So you can see that the amount of people are saving has gone up. Now, part of this is inflation, but the last 10 years, the markets have been generally in a very positive uptrend. So this reflects it. Now, 2031, if we look at this, who knows? Maybe we'll double again. But I don't know if that's going to happen given all the uncertainties in the economy. But you can see here that IRAs have had the most growth. 401ks have gone from 73 to 129, also a pretty impressive growth. And then 403bs, which are more around government workers, have actually had probably the most growth in terms of percentages. Again, that's because they tend to have very generous matching contributions, so they've just accelerated. And what this really shows you is the power of compounding. You hold an account long enough, you have decent market returns, and you keep contributing, eventually your assets will double. So, this is a whole separate video, but the sooner you start saving, the sooner you start investing, let the magic of compounding work, and you'll end up with a nice scenario where you'll double your savings over time. It's inevitable. So here's some nice takeaway and tips of how people did that. So Gen Z, are a big part of the savers, and more than a third of, having been able to increase your contribution savings rate. So you can contribute based on your paycheck every year. And part of this is, I think everyone's been at home, they haven't been spending as much, so they've had time to look at their finances, and so they've increased how much they can contribute. Now, generally, people can contribute to 401k 19,500 as of the current year. That increase keeps going up, and I'll post the limits in the links below. But generally, you can contribute up to that. And the main thing is you can also, an employer will match, up to your first 3% or your 6%, depending on how generous your contribution, your employer is of your contribution. So that's allowed people to increase their savings pretty quickly. And the good thing is the pandemic with all the stimulus checks, the tax breaks, has allowed people to save more, and generally because they're at home. So that's great. So that means that all the savings that have happened now will compound over the next several years. So you'll see this doubling, even if we get average returns over the next 10 years. And the contribution rate is 9.3%, which is really high. It means people are saving almost 10% of their pre-tax savings there, which is pretty good. I mean, rate used to be in the low teens a few years ago, so this doesn't, this is a pretty nice thing to see. And I wouldn't be surprised that, when they look at this in 6 months from now, it'll be up over 10%. This doesn't include company matches, payments, and this again, for 401ks, 403bs, this can really add up a lot. So if you add those in, the average goes up to almost 14%, which is huge. Most people say you generally need to have between 15 and 20% of your money saved to have a comfortable retirement after the age of 65. So, while 13.9% is great, I think if you can get it to closer to 20%, you'll end up in a much safer and secure retirement and hopefully even retire early. This is basically what Fidelity was saying. They recommend 15%. I would go for 20%. I think 15% in this economy, this market is too little. I don't think returns are going to be as generous, and I think inflation will kick in as well. So 15% should be your target, maybe initially, depending on obviously your age bracket. But as you get older, save more. Of course, the earlier you save, the better, but aim for at least 15%. And I would say you should have it in your retirement accounts, plus obviously in an after-tax accounts as well, because you cannot touch these retirement accounts without paying a penalty or taxes until you're over age 59 and a half. But hopefully this has showed you some interesting statistics and facts, and the fact that compounding does work. Generally, Americans are getting richer. So if you feel you're not yet there, start accelerating your contributions. If you're past that, well done for you. And it's always good to check how you're doing compared to the average. Thanks.